Good morning, everyone. My name is Anant Tripathi, and I'm here to start off your first lecture. The topic that we are going to be talking about here in next 2.5 hours is actually modern history. Okay. Now, I have been involved with the, UPSC preparation since last 10 years. A lot of students have come to me and they've asked me, sir, which portions of history are important, or can we skip this kind of geography, for example, physical geography or world geography? Or maybe, my economics is not very good. Can I skip that portion? Can I skip medieval history because not a lot of questions come in the exam? Such queries, I find them slightly flawed. You know why? Because UPSC is looking for integrated personalities. Your entire preparation should culminate into making you into that integrated personality. Unless you know the entire story of your past, comprising of ancient, medieval as well as modern, you cannot make sense of the current events. Please avoid such short-sightedness, this kind of myopic vision. It may have worked for some individual candidates. It may have, but that's purely fluke. That's purely fluke. UPSC is not into that kind of an ideology. I would advise you to take care of every portion as something which is going to add to your personality. Right? If you can do that, then this entire paper will be quite easy for us. Okay? Now let's try and focus our attention to modern history. My first step here is going to give you the syllabus. Right? We will look at the syllabus and we will see how are we going to approach. I'll give you my pedagogy. I'll also talk about what I expect from you guys at every phase of this preparation, right? I would also advise if you can write it, wonderful. Okay, so this is the syllabus of history as such which UPSC provides us, right? Let's have a look at it. Art, culture and heritage from ancient to modern times. Right? Visually, such as, for example, they are talking about literature. How our literature has evolved over this course of time, right? We have to understand that. Then the next piece of information which UPSC, this is as per the UPSC syllabus, remember that, right? Literature, architecture, performing arts, etc. Right, this is the first portion of our syllabus. A lot of questions appear from this, this sphere. Art, culture and heritage. And as you can see, UPSC is taking a really broad view of art, culture and heritage, isn't it? They're talking about literature, architecture, performing arts. What are performing arts? Performing arts are primarily your music, dance and drama, puppetry as well. Right, something which can be performed. These are called as performing arts. On the other hand are the visual arts. Visual arts are like your painting. I'm sorry, I missed one. Another example, another point is paintings, etc. Fair enough, we will look at all these in detail. Okay. The second, in fact, hang on, before going into the next aspect, I think the first question that you should probably be asking me and yourself is, these terms, ancient, medieval, modern, do they have any sense other than simple, relative understanding? What do I mean here is, क्या इनको quantify करना possible है? Can we quantify them? Because that will be important. I'm sure you would agree, right? It will be important. For understanding this, you need to know some terms. I would be talking about these terms, right? तो ये syllabus तो हमारा discussion चल रहा है. Parallelly, I'm going to explain to you these terms and then come back here. Right? I don't want to have any confusion about it. If you want, you can make a separate box probably and then write this. Have you heard of terms such as a prehistory or proto-history? These are the terms which I want to talk about now. Again, very important. Prehistory. And then you have history and a transitional phase which is called as proto-history. These are the three terms which you will often hear when we are discussing about the story of our past. What are the difference here? What is the difference here? The difference is actually only one. In our prehistory phase, we had no script. We did not know how to write. A script is the way of writing, right? So we did not know how to write. This is the main feature of prehistory, right? It had no script, right? In the historical phase, we have a script, right? We have a script. We know how to write. Writing is important, isn't it? Because once human beings start writing, information can be transferred to the next future generations, right? So information can be accumulated. What we study, what we read, the next generations will be able to read it in a smaller time and build on that level of information, right? History is that phase where human beings knew about writing and written sources are available. Written evidences of our past are available. What is proto-history in that case? Proto-history is simply a transitional phase where human being is, learning to write, where human beings are writing in a kind of script which we have not been able to understand yet. You get my point? I'll repeat. I am saying in proto-history, what happens is, human beings, a proto-historic civilization, a proto-historic society, they will know how, they will have a script. But we, the current people, we will not be able to understand that script. We will not be able to decipher it. The best example here which you should keep in mind is the Indus script. Have you heard of Indus Valley civilization? I'm sure, right? Harappan civilization, which is better known as Harappan civilization. So the Harappan script or the Indus script has not been deciphered. We have received written records and evidences, but we have not been able to understand what they are saying, right? Okay, so once you've understood these three terms, it is in the historical phase that now we start talking about terms such as ancient, medieval, and modern. Okay, this is where ancient, medieval, and modern, these terms are used primarily for the historical phase, the phase where written records are available for us. Okay, so now let's come back to these terms, right? Ancient, medieval, and modern. in the Indian context. In the Indian context, I'm giving you a very, very rough figures here. The ancient Indian history is supposed to be from around 600 BCE to around 320 CE. This is the timeline for your ancient Indian history, right? Around 600 BCE. I hope you guys understand these terminologies BCE and CE. In case you have any problem, you can always ask. The latest NCERT books, they have also adopted this notation, right? I would advise you to simply Google and probably just read. And in case you have any doubt, you are most welcome to ask. You're most welcome to ask. So yeah, this is the timeline of ancient phase of history. When it comes to the medieval phase, is typically portrayed as from around 300 and, I'm so sorry, put this as 550 CE. Yeah. The medieval phase, this is actually the end of Gupta age, right? So this is considered to be the end of ancient age as well. The medieval age begins from around 600 CE and it goes on till around 1707 CE. This is the death of Aurangzeb. This is the time from where modern history begins, symbolically, right? And the modern history, it starts from, 18th century. 18th century. Again, we're taking it the same symbolic date, 1707 onwards. Now, you must also ask me that, sir, why are we, using these notations? Why are we being so specific? Why are we calling only this period as ancient and only this period as medieval? Is there anything changing in the society? Yes, a lot. We will be studying all that, but at the proper time. The modern history begins from this point onwards, 1707 onwards, right? Okay, now you can close that box and we can come back to this syllabus. Okay, so the next point which the UPSC provides us in the syllabus concerning history is modern Indian history. This directly concerns us today. Modern Indian history, right? And this will begin from 18th century or 1707, whatever you want to write. 18th century onwards. Just to give you an additional information here, why are we calling this period modern history? Have you ever wondered? Modern, what do I mean by modern history? There's just one word which can actually capture the essence of modernization, what is happening here. And that is interconnectedness. Why are we calling it modern Indian history? Is because this is the time when India as a society, as an economy, it got connected with the rest of the globe for various reasons. One of them, of course, we'll study it in depth, is colonialism or imperialism, isn't it? When these Britishers, Portuguese, French, Danes, they all came in and tried to colonize vast areas of our land. In this way, India was connected with the global economy, right? And hence, this is primarily the reason why we take this as 18th century, the starting of 18th century as the starting of modern Indian history. Okay. The third part The third part which UPSC is providing us with in the syllabus is Indian national movement. This is around 1850s onwards, starting off with the revolt of 1857, mutiny of 1857. We'll discuss that. Indian national movement, how it emerged, what were the reasons behind it, what were the characteristics of it. We will of course be talking about Mahatma Gandhi and the entire phases of Indian national movement during these classes, right? The fourth portion that we have is the again a very interesting one and increasingly becoming important in modern history, is the post-independence history. This is one section which is becoming increasingly important if you look at the current trends of questions. Post-independence India. It concerns with the consolidation, reorganization, and unification. I'm sure probably you guys must be aware about this, that when Britishers left us in 1947, there were still more than 550 large and small principalities or kingdoms, right? And these were independent in theory, right? So how we managed to unify all them, and how we managed to consolidate them, and how did we manage to reorganize and create our own linguistic states? Right? These are some of the portions that you need to study here, right? And do remember my advice here, that post-independence portion, the questions on this are becoming increasingly relevant, right? These are the first 4 points, and finally the last one. This is the last part of your history syllabus from UPSC. This last part comes only in the mains examination. Please, you should be aware about this. These first 4, you should know them for your prelims as well as your mains, as well as your interviews everywhere, right? And this 5th one here, this is basically your modern world history. When I say modern world history, it is primarily European history that we are supposed to be aware about, although I would try and give you snapshots of other important variables as well, right? But primarily it will be Eurocentric, right? Modern world history. Again, when I say modern world history, remember, I think you should now be able to intuitively guess. The modern world history will also begin from 18th century, because this is the time when everybody got interconnected, isn't it? So modern history, the entire globe is having only one modern history. This is very important. You can study medieval Indian history in isolation or medieval Chinese history in isolation, but you cannot study modern Indian history in isolation. You cannot study modern French history in isolation. You need to consider the other factors. Wouldn't you agree? This is why I would also advise you one more thing here. If you really want to understand this, and especially this, yeah, you can forget about the first one, but if you really want to understand second, third and fourth modern Indian history, you should listen very carefully when this is being dealt. Because then you will be able to make sense out of such things. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. After the French Revolution, Napoleon rose to power, right? And Napoleon's army and Tipu Sultan's army in Mysore, They actually had a lot of correspondence, and they tried to create a unified front against the Britishers. Right? So unless you can put these things in perspective of the entire global geopolitics, I think your study and probably my responsibility both will be unfulfilled. So, I would advise you also be very careful here. Now, UPSC has provided us a small suggested list of topics in the modern world history, because I'm sure you would agree, right? Modern world history is huge. So, इसमें क्या-क्या पढ़ना है? UPSC is giving you a slightly, what should I say, एक suggested reading का topics, which are, यहाँ पे दिखेगा ना या ऊपर, हाँ, which are the American Revolution, French Revolution, industrialization, this is a long list, but yeah, you should probably be writing them. Industrialization, capitalism. This is all my responsibility that I make you understand each of these terms. Socialism, communism, nationalism, unification of Germany and Italy. Unification of Germany and Italy. I'll probably write the rest of the topics here. Unification. You probably would be surprised to know this, that Germany and Italy were not nations till around 1860s. Right, till 1860s, 1870s, they were not nations. They were simply a setup of independent kingdoms, right? Speaking the same language. For example, the Germans, the Germanic kingdoms were speaking German. Italian kingdoms were speaking Italic. So unification of Germany and Italy. The two world wars. United Nations, Cold War, etc. Don't you love these etceteras? I personally do, seriously. I mean, they give you so much of scope to learn. Anyway, so these are few topics that we must be keeping in our mind, right? This is your syllabus, so as to speak. I'm sure, it may seem slightly overwhelming or daunting. It may. It is not actually. If you can really clear your mind and only focus on what I'm telling you, right? I think we can do this, right? I would be making certain suggestions here, and I want you to follow them as we proceed. You can consider them requests, right? First of all, you need to make or create some kind of a homework copy, maybe, right? Or what I intend to do is, in my lectures, I would keep giving you certain additional readings, or maybe, let's say, terms or news which are currently important. And I would like you to go and Google and write about them and understand them as well, and relate to the topics which we are studying. You're getting my point here, right? In such cases, I want you guys to have some kind of a homework copy. Just keep adding these. I'll give you certain questions to write answers. You can, attempt them and keep it handy, right? This is something which is very important. As we proceed, I also intend to share a Google Drive with you guys where we can probably keep exchanging notes. I also intend to share my personal numbers so that we can keep on getting in regular contact with each other. Regarding the flow of the classes, regarding the individual queries, I intend to do all that, but at necessary time slots. Okay, so this is what you should keep in mind for the time being. Okay, now to begin with, I'll be of course I'll erase this. Okay. Okay, so the kind of so when we talk about the modern Indian history, there are certain, of course, components here that you need to keep in mind. What I am implying is, हमने तुम्हें बताया, I just told you that when I say modern Indian history, I imply this is going to be a history of India when it got connected with the rest of the globe. Everyone, right? The Europe, rest of Asia, America, all these. That means the developments there started influencing us here. One thing that you need to keep in mind, that when this phase begins, India का हालत कैसा है? What I mean is, if you look at a very rough sort of a map, if this is your Gujarat, this is Narmada, this is Tapi, this is somewhere Ganga, this is Yamuna, this is Krishna, Tungabhadra. I'm giving you some very somewhere around here is Godavari. Okay, so and this is somewhere around here is Indus. अगर इतना एक rough map अगर तुम्हें idea है, if you have this kind of a rough idea, in the 18th century India, the political fragmentation of the country was quite huge, right? It was not simply the Mughals dominating the entire India. No, that phase had gotten over. In fact, ऐसे करके समझो, हाँ, ये करके ऐसे समझते हैं. The entire 18th century saw two major phenomena happening. Yeah, this is how probably you should keep in mind. 18th century, when I say 18th century, I imply 1700s, right? 1701 to 1799. So during this course of our history, what happened was, there were two major phenomena which took place. What was that? First of all, पहला phenomena क्या था बेटे? EIC, the British East India Company, right? It managed to outwit the other European trading companies, the other European trading companies. Okay, tell me, who was the first European who came to India? I'm sure you must have heard of this guy called Vasco de Gama, right? So in 1498, Vasco de Gama from Portugal, he reached India around here. This is called as Malabar coast, right? ये तुम्हारा Malabar coast है, while on the other hand, this is your Coromandel coast. Okay, so Vasco de Gama was a Portuguese. He sailed from Lisbon. And he reached, please carry an atlas with you during the classes and keep referring to them. Right? This is extremely important that you keep referring to atlas. You know, Vasco de Gama, what is his contribution to our history? He searched a new path, a new sea route to India. Iske pehle, I mean, before Vasco de Gama as well, there were so many Europeans who had visited India. But why Vasco de Gama is remembered? Because he searched for a new route via Cape of Good Hope. This is the southernmost tip of African continent, right? So he managed to sail around it, and via Madagascar, he reached Calicut in Malabar coast, right? And from there, this entire cycle of colonialism began. So Portuguese were the first colonial power to enter India, right? I'm sure you know this, right? We will get into the details of them. Don't worry, we'll get into the details of them. Today, my objective is just simply to give you a snapshot, right? So just try and listen and absorb. So as I was telling you, this chap, Vasco de Gama, Portuguese came the first. They managed to capture Goa as well, in fact. Anyway, so after the Portuguese came the Dutch, right? After the Portuguese, this is in fact one of the questions which was asked in UPSC prelims, I think last year. They asked you in which order did these colonial powers came to India, right? So the first one was Portuguese, the second one was the Dutch, right? The third one was the Britishers, East India Company. Fourth one were the French, and the fifth one were the Danes, people from the Denmark. These were the colonial powers who entered India, okay, in this chronological order. So Britishers came third, but they came first, right? So Britishers were the third to reach India. In the 18th century, what we notice is that Britishers managed to outwit all the others and rise to the top, and they become the prominent trading partner with India. They start monopolizing India-Europe trade. You getting my point? They start monopolizing India-Europe trade, especially in commodities such as indigo, silk, and spices. Yes, indigo, silk and spices. So they start monopolizing and they start outwitting others, especially the French East Indian Company, which was the most aggressive rival of British East India Company. I hope you guys are following me. So this happened. Have you guys ever heard of Carnatic Wars? The Carnatic Wars were fought between British East India Company and the French East India Company. There were 3 Carnatic Wars. What is Carnatic? Carnatic is this region. इस region को Carnatic कहते हैं. right? This is the region where modern day Mysore is present, right? So, Carnatic Wars were fought here. Anyway, so there were 3 Carnatic Wars, and the result of these Carnatic Wars was that France was moved out of the equation. France claim to India as a territorial power ended. They were reduced to a simple status of merchants, right? And now East India Company, British East India Company reigned supreme among all the Europeans. So this is the first phenomena which I was talking about. East India Company, British East India Company rising. The second phenomena which I was referring to is actually also quite interesting. What is happening here is, in fact, 18th century itself, and during the lifetime of Aurangzeb itself, if you look at it, Mughals had started sort of declining, right? They were not able to hold on to this entire realm of theirs, this huge subcontinent. They were not able to hold on to it to the best of their capabilities for so many reasons. Once Aurangzeb died in 1707, this decline became more perceptible to everyone. Everybody started understanding that the Mughals are declining, and as a result what happened was several powerful autonomous states appeared. What do I mean by autonomous states appeared? I imply that within the Mughal Empire, there were so many large provinces, right? When the governors of these provinces started realizing that the central authority has weakened and it is on a decline, they started taking matters in their own hand. They started establishing distance from the central authority and creating autonomous states. What do I mean by autonomous? Autonomous means self-ruling, right? They were ruling, they had autonomy. They maintained symbolic respect for the Mughal authority, but in theory and in practice, they were quite independent, right? There are several which are important for us here because they will play a very major role in the geopolitics, right? I'm going to name a few, right? Dhyan rakhenge. So some of the autonomous states that emerge in 18th century as a result of Mughal decline are Bengal, Bengal was established by the Mughal governor known as Murshid Quli Khan. Murshid, I will write the name here, yeah, Murshid Quli Khan. He was the founder of the Bengal state. Now, another point which I would like to make here is, when I say Bengal, I include Bangladesh as well, right? And Bihar and Orissa as well, and Jharkhand as well, right? So it was a huge province that I'm talking about. This was a Mughal province, right? It was a Mughal province. The Mughal provinces were known as Suba, right? So the Bengal was a Suba, और इसके सूबेदार थे Murshid Quli Khan, right? And he created the independent state of Bengal. I hope now it makes sense. So this entire region, if you look at it, was in Bengal, right? Another autonomous state which rose in 18th century politics was your Hyderabad. Hyderabad was your basically your entire Andhra and Telangana region. You can consider it roughly including as something like this, something like this region. It included your Krishna, Tungabhadra region, right? Telangana, Rayalaseema, this region. Please, beta, I think you guys have the luxury of pausing the video or maybe reviewing it later on. The terms which I'm mentioning, I would request you to go and find them out on the map. Probably I'm expecting too much from you, maybe. But I am ready to give you the same amount of, help once you need it. I would expect you to be on your 100% as well. Please, it's not, it's not easy. I'm telling you, it's not easy. You have to be at the top of your game. You really have to be at the top of your game to crack this exam. All of us know this, right? Koshish karo, any word which I am saying it with a purpose. I'm saying it with a purpose. Please try and find out what exactly I said. Agar koi confusion ho rahi hai, please ask me. Please ask me, right? So, I'm telling you, Hyderabad is, sunne mein lagta hai Hyderabad is a city. No, Hyderabad was a huge state. It had this entire coastal Andhra, Telangana and Rayalaseema. Okay? Fine, fair enough. Acha, Hyderabad ke founder ka naam bhi likh lo. It might come in handy, right? Hyderabad's founder was Nizam ul Mulk. Asaf Jah. Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jah. Asaf Jahi dynasty bhi kehte hain isko. I mean, Hyderabad's ruling family is called as Asaf Jahi dynasty. Once we go into the post-independence period of our history, I will tell you, and I'm sure some of us know this, Hyderabad was one of the state, along with Kashmir and Junagadh, who tried to stay independent after 1947. And it was, because of the, kya kehna chahiye usse, because of the tenacity and vision of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and his actions that we managed to, ensure that nothing of this sort happens. So Bengal, Hyderabad, notice the size of these states. Do you notice the size of these states? They are huge chunks. They are not small petty states or kingdoms that we are talking about. No, these are huge chunks. They were like, nations of Europe. Larger than, in fact, most of the European nations. So, they're quite powerful. Bengal, Hyderabad. The next one was Awadh. Awadh is your this region. यहाँ पे था अवध, मान लो ऐसे करके था. Right, this is your Awadh. Awadh was founded by, Awadh के founder का भी नाम लिख लो. This is Bengal. This is Bengal's founder. This is Hyderabad's founder. Awadh's founder is Saadat Khan. Yes, Saadat Khan. Saadat Khan. Burhan ul Mulk. Saadat Khan, Burhan ul Mulk. 1 second. Okay. So these are the three primary states that I need you to keep in mind, right? We'll be talking about them mostly, Bengal, Hyderabad and Awadh. Acha. Now take a step back and look at this, what I just told you. I am telling you, 18th century witnessed two dominant phenomena that we need to study. Kya hai beta wo? Pehla, British East India Company trumps all the others, right? Majorly the French East India Company, right? Under the three Carnatic Wars. Okay. Secondly, the second phenomena that I was talking about was the Mughal ship was sinking, and the Mughal Empire was disintegrating into several powerful autonomous states. Most powerful of them were Bengal, Hyderabad and Awadh. Okay, fine. So we will be studying about these two phenomena, of course. ठीक है. So you know what happens here is let's begin our discussion in that case. Let's start talking a bit more about these Carnatic Wars, you know. So I was telling you that East India Company, the British East India Company and the French East India Company, they got engaged in three Carnatic Wars, right? And these three Carnatic Wars, they were fought between 1744 to 1763. Right? These are this is the timeline for your three Carnatic Wars. What are Carnatic Wars? Once again, quickly revise. The Carnatic Wars were fought between British and the French in the Carnatic region. What is the Carnatic region? Carnatic region is the region parallel to the Coromandel coast. Take it? So, you know, as I was telling you, these, you know, can you tell me what is colonialism? Or let's say, what is imperialism? I'm sure we have heard of these terms. What are they? Imperialism is actually this attitude of people which believes in their inherent superiority over others. Put simply, this is imperialism, right? When somebody or some community believes that he or she is superior or they are superior than others, and it gives them the right to exploit others for their benefit, is imperialism, right? This is the ideology. Imperialism is the ideology and colonialism is the practice. People who have imperialist ideology, they are the one who practice colonialism. So if you look at it, they are the two sides of the same coin. This is the ideology and this is the practice, right? So In the modern times, what started happening was, for a variety of reasons, some of these European countries, they started exhibiting signs of imperialism, and they started this entire huge colonizing agenda or program. Prominent colonial powers, right, that emerged in this phase were Portugal, Spain, England, France. These are the four prominent colonial powers that you need to keep in mind, right? They were engaged in these huge, missions to go and discover new lands and colonize them, exploit them for various purposes. Their natural resources, in case of India, in Africa for their human resources. The slavery trading also began. So now think about it. ठीक है, ये चार प्लेयर हैं. In 1492, Columbus discovered America. Right? Columbus discovered America, and as a result, Columbus was Spanish. Right? And as a result, we notice that Portugal and Spain, they got engaged in warfare in the Latin Americas. Portugal and Spain, they started colonizing the Latin America, while England and France, they fought over North America, primarily USA, modern day USA and Canada. ठीक है? So there were consistent conflicts between these countries, that who will capture the best of the colonies, where they can, capture the maximum profits. There was a lot of conflict around this topic, around this issue, that who will capture the best of the most strategic of the lands and colonies. In 18th century, England and France were the two most powerful imperial powers in 18th century. ठीक है? Story begins here, 16th century, but by 18th century, England and France are the two most powerful imperial powers. And what we find is that throughout 18th century, England and France are involved in a tussle on several continents. Mark my words, on several continents. ये लोग कई जगह लड़ रहे हैं. जहां जहां इंग्लैंड और फ्रांस आपस में एक दूसरे को पा रहे हैं, वहां एक दूसरे से लड़ रहे हैं. Right? What I mean is, they're engaging in conflict in not only in Europe, but also in America, North America, and in the Carnatic in Asia, South Asia to be precise. You get my point here? देख रहे हो ना? This is what I meant when I say that the modern world history, modern Indian history has to be interconnected. तो इंग्लैंड और फ्रांस कार्नाटिक वॉर्स में क्यों लड़ रहे हैं? यहां की वजहों से नहीं लड़ रहे हैं, ग्लोबली लड़ रहे हैं. You getting my point here? They're fighting for global reasons. On a global, there's a global race that who will colonize the most productive parts of the earth. Right? So, the result is that in this time period, England and British East India companies, they fight in this time period in the Carnatic as well. ठीक है? 3 Carnatic Wars होंगी जिनके बारे में हम लोग को पढ़ना है. Fine. ओके 18th सेंचुरी के डिबेट में हम लोग को ये दो फिनोमेना ध्यान से जानने होंगे जो मैंने आपको बताए. Moving onwards, you would also be required to know the, this is of course very important. You need to understand the development of British rule in India, right? तो देखो आओ let's try and make some kind of a framework, right? Let's make a framework of the list of the topics that we are going to study here. So I will be giving you, of course, we will be talking about the Carnatic Wars. After that, I intend to talk about how British East India Company, Carnatic Wars mein who won it? The British East India Company. So now in the second aspect, I'm going to talk about how East India Company captures territory in India. This is a very important portion of our syllabus. What do I mean? Let me explain. When the Britishers and the French are fighting with each other, they were engaged in Carnatic, and what is more important is the British and French also had presence in Bengal. Right? Britain had a colony, a small colony in Bengal known as Calcutta. Right? It was which later became a very big town, of course, right? And the French, they also had a factory, a small colony kind of a thing in Bengal known as Chandar Nagore, right? So when the British and French were fighting here in Carnatic, they also started fortifying in Bengal. And the Nawab of Bengal did not like it. The Nawab of Bengal at that point of time, we will be talking about it, so don't worry about it, right? I'm just again giving you some brief description. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Daulah, he did not like it, and he invaded the British factory and destroyed and killed quite a few British men as well. This resulted in the 1757 Battle of Plassey. Battle of Plassey. This was fought between British East India Company under Robert Clive and Siraj-ud-Daulah, Nawab Siraj-ud-Daulah, right? The Nawab lost the battle. East India Company won this battle and received huge amount of tributes and money from the Bengal's treasury. It was this money which they received from Bengal treasury which actually financed their war against the French in the Carnatic. And that is the reason why they were able to outwit France, because they had Bengal. You follow me? Right. So we will be studying about the Battle of Plassey. We would also be talking about the Battle of Buxar, which happened in 1764, where once again Robert Clive's East India Company defeated, who's Robert Clive? I'll talk about him, don't worry. All in good time. So 1764 Battle of Buxar. This was fought with the Mughal Emperor, right? The Mughal Emperor, Bengal and Awadh all combined their forces and fought one last battle against the Britishers. They lost it, And the result was a Treaty of Allahabad. Treaty of Allahabad, which was signed in 1765, and it granted the revenue rights, revenue collection rights, the Diwani rights as they were known then. Diwani rights were given to East India Company. They were the revenue collection rights. All these rights were given to East India Company. So in effect, they had now complete control over Bengal, which was the richest Mughal province. Its entire finances was now, they lay at the feet of British East India Company. You can understand the implications of it. So much of economic power now made it possible for them to actually dream for controlling the rest of the India as well. Till now they were just another set of European merchants, right? Now they had something else. They had Bengal. Bengal is known as the bridge using which the Britishers captured the rest of India. Okay? Chalo, theek hai. So we will be looking at how EIC captures Bengal. That is the first portion of our study that we will be doing. After this, we will be looking at how company fared between 1757 to 1858. This is the time period we will be taking up, and I would be telling you how East India Company managed to outwit, managed to defeat other Indian powers. Who were the other Indian powers? Can you think of any? Can you think of any? This is where you will study about Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali, Mysore. We will look at the Anglo-Mysore Wars. There were 4 Anglo-Mysore Wars. We will study about them. We will look at the 3 Anglo-Maratha Wars. Right? These are all the powers. The Sikh power in Punjab. Anglo-Sikh War we will look at. How Britishers managed to defeat each one of these prominent powers, you need to know. And using what tactics? The only tactics which Britishers were very smart about was they did not let them unite. They did not let these Indian powers realize that they must communicate with themselves. This is why we say, right, divide and rule policy. So, they managed to defeat each one of them individually in a phased manner. We will need to study all that. We need to talk about some important governor generals here and their policies, such as doctrine of lapse. A lot of questions have started appearing around these topics, so you should be aware. You should be aware about these topics. They are, these details which I give you, most of them will be available online or any good book which you consult. Any good book which you consult. Any decent book which you consult, actually. Pick any. Seriously, pick any. I would personally advise that you pick NCERT. My notes will suffice. My notes and my lectures and my sessions here will suffice. But I would expect some smart thinking and smart work from your side. ठीक है ना, बस और बाकी नहीं, बाकी ज़्यादा किताब और इसके चक्कर में नहीं पढ़ना है मैं. So Mysore, Maratha, Sikh, Awadh का बात कर लिया है, Bengal लिख लिया है. So these are few other powers that you should also be knowing about, and we would be talking about them. You getting my point here? And we would be talking about, as I was telling you, we would be discussing some important personalities, Britishers who came to India and made an impact. This is where I will tell you about Robert Clive, Warren Hastings, Wellesley, Bentinck, William Bentinck actually. These are guys who were all governors. They came as governors, governor generals. Dalhousie, and we will look at their contributions, their important contributions. ठीक है? Okay, but once we have finished, this entire discussion of 1757 till 1858, I should also tell you right away that in 1857 there was a mutiny, a revolt, right, which is often termed as the first war of India's independence, right? This change, this revolt brought fundamental changes to the colonial structure. The British colonial structure. East India Company was abolished in 1858, right? And now the British Crown decided to directly rule India. It was decided that British Crown is going to directly administer Indian territories. And now this is where Governor Generals also came to be known as the Viceroy, as a representative of the British Crown, right? So we will be talking about the revolt of 1857 in fact, before discussing the revolt of 1857, what I would like is to discuss some of these charter and regulation acts. This is how typically I would proceed in my classes. Charter and regulation acts. What do I mean here? I imply that as East India Company started capturing more and more territory inside India, right? Remember, East India Company was established as what? They were a group of merchants. They were not supposed to administer territories. But now all of a sudden they started, they got Bengal. Bengal was like, larger than Britain, right? So the British government noticed it, and they tried at several stages to regulate the affairs of the company. You follow me? That's why the name, the Regulation Acts or the Regulating Acts. They are trying to regulate the affairs, control the affairs of East India Company and ensure that they follow certain norms, certain rules, right? We need to study those. Why? Because they are kind of fundamental in how things have evolved currently as well, right? So we will quickly look at those basic points. For example, when was the Supreme Court came in, these kinds of small little details, they come in handy, especially in your prelims paper, Okay, so we will look at these charter and regulation acts. And once I'm done with this, this lot, I will now introduce you to the socio-reform movements. We will look at social reforms, socio-reform movements. This is where we will study about Ram Mohan Roy, and so many others that you need to know, right? Very important, again, extremely important. Every year in mains, you will notice, a 5 marker or a 7.5 marker question appearing from here. So, social reform movements, we will look at it carefully here. I would then take up economic analysis of colonialism. This is where we'll talk about terms such as क्या कहते हैं, rural indebtedness, commercialization of agriculture, how the permanent settlement system, zamindari system, rayatwari system, mahalwari system, how they changed the Indian economic scenario, how they changed it for good and for worse. We will look at both sides of the debate, right? We will do this analysis, very important. And we will also look at the drain of wealth theory, which was propounded by Dada Bhai Nauroji, who is known as Grand Old Man of India. Once we are done with this basic economic analysis, we will now dive into Indian national movement. Right, this is where I'll start talking about the early organization, a couple of them, early Indian organizations which were created, and we would also look at some viceroys and formation of Congress. Right, we will look at the formation of Congress in 1885. That is when it happened, right? तो उसका जिक्र करेंगे हम लोग. We will talk about the moderate phase, right? The moderate phase. Have you heard these terms such as moderates, extremists, naram dal, garam dal? Right. So these we'll talk about these phases. What were their ideological differences? Then we will also talk about. Then we will introduce into this wonderful recipe. We'll introduce Mahatma Gandhi, and we will see how a revolution takes place. तो पढ़ने के लिए बहुत मज़ेदार चीज़ें हैं हमारे हाथ में. Indian national movement, we will of course be talking about the other leaders as well. We'll talk about the socialist influence on our independence movement. We will talk about what Subhash Chandra Bose did. We will also be talking about the revolutionaries and their approaches and their ideological influences. Right, so this is what we have to study in Indian national movement. Okay, so once we are done with this, we will now, once we are done with Indian national movement, I am not going to give you a more breakup. There is an elaborate breakup of Indian national movement as well, but I don't think the time is right now. It will only confuse you as of now, right? So I'll give you detailed, इनका भी topical breakup मैं आपको दूंगा in the relevant classes. You get my point here? This is not one topic. No, these are like a set of topics. उनको हम लोग categorize करेंगे further. So Indian national movement. Last is your post independence. इसके बाद सीधे बेटा तुम्हारा post independence आ जाएगा. Right? Post independence India. दो पॉइंट्स लिख लो तो अच्छा रहेगा. हैंग ऑन. हाँ देखो, जैसे हमने तुम्हें क्या बताया, इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट आई टोल्ड यू वी विल लुक एट द एज ऑफ मॉडरेट्स. age of extremists. After this, we look at the Gandhian age. Age of socialism. This is the phase where, leaders such as Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, these young leaders, they got very extremely influenced by Vladimir Lenin of USSR, right? The Russian Revolution which took place in 1917. So they got very influenced, and we notice that 1925 onwards, Congress decidedly took a socialist turn towards its entire, outlook, because of the influence of leaders such as Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. So we will talk about socialism as well. As I told you, we will also be talking about the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries we will be talking about the revolutionaries as well. Revolutionaries, when I say, again, the history of revolutionary nationalism in India is very, very interesting. They have shown increased, they have shown bursts of activity. You getting my point here? It is not as if there were certain phases where a lot of revolutionary crimes were committed, right? And then there were phases when there were absolutely none at all, right? These revolutionary crimes, the first one, if you look at it, is supposed to be from around 1897 onwards, right? Pehla jo tha, it took place in Maharashtra, under the influence of speeches of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, right, who is known as father of Indian unrest. Two brothers known as Chapekar brothers from Pune, they assassinated some local British officials, European officials, right? In fact, Gangadhar Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was charged for sedition, and he had very famously thundered in the court, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. In Marathi he spoke something like Swaraj Majhala, he spoke it very beautifully. You should probably read it, yeah, right? So we'll talk about, we'll start our story from Chapekar brothers once again, and we will go on and discuss some important revolutionary events, such as we'll talk about Ram Prasad Bismil and Ashfaqullah Khan and Kakori train conspiracy. We'll of course talk about Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, Chandrasekhar Azad, some of these famous names we'll discuss. And yeah, this is what you need to know in a nutshell. But I think, one more, as we are discussing, I think one more point that we can add, and we should probably, is, and remind me in my classes, please do remind me that I have promised you this, right? We will try and have one lecture on simply foreign, essay, Indian revolutionaries operating outside India. I don't think it will require one entire lecture. I think 15-20 minutes if we can discuss some questions, for example, Madam Kama, you know, Bhikaji Kama जिनके नाम पर बना हुआ है, Madam Kama, there's one, another one, Shyamji Krishna Verma, who established the India House. These are the people who are often in news these days, because if you're following the news, government is releasing stamps to commemorate these personalities. I'm getting these names from there. So operating outside India, we will discuss them as well. इनको साथ में ही लिख सकते हैं, या we'll discuss them together. Yeah, this is what the entire thing that you need to know about the Indian national movement. Lastly, the next topic that I will be taking up is the post-independence. I'll erase this, right? Last topic is post-independence India. So this is of course 1947 onwards, right? 1947 onwards. इसमें within this topic we will look at several subtopics, as I was telling you, right? Unification, consolidation and integration, वो तो ध्यान ही रखना है हमें. We will look at creation of linguistic states. How the Language Commission or the Fazl Ali Commission was created, and how it came out with the, this advice, this recommendation that we must create a linguistic state, and Andhra Pradesh became the first state to be drawn on linguistic lines. Linguistic means on the basis of language which they spoke. So creation of linguistic states. We need to talk about integration of tribes. Basically the 5th and the 6th schedule of our constitution. 5th and 6th schedule of our constitution, which deals with the status of scheduled tribes and how the regions where scheduled tribes are present, how they need to be governed. We'll look at them as well, right? After this, post-independence India, we are going to look at some important events. Such as NAM, ठीक है, India's role in Cold War, wars in our history, wars जो modern wars हैं हम लोग की, जैसे 1962, 65, 71, 99, etc. We look at these wars. Again, we are not going to go into any kind of a major study. We're just going to simply look at some causes and keep them mentally here. Why? Because I'm telling you why. Remember, integrated personality. You should know these important events. Even if there's not a direct question out of here, even if there's not a direct question, it is bound to help you in eliminating options. there's only this much of information universe in which you are supposed to operate. If you know this much, they cannot give you questions and options from out of this universe. They cannot. Right? So if you keep these are like puzzles, you have the entire picture. Now whatever they ask you, you can look at that corner and tell them the answer. So this information, even if it is not directly relevant, it has to be indirectly relevant. Remember that, it has to be indirectly relevant. जानना जरूरी है हमारे लिए एक एक चीज. इसमें से कोई भी ऐसी चीज नहीं है, कोई भी ऐसा टॉपिक नहीं है जो आप ये सोच के छोड़ दें कि इसका क्वेश्चन नहीं बनता है. That will be a very, very wrong approach to take. Because then you're going against the basic objective of UPSC. They want, and यार पूरा एक पेपर उन्होंने डाल दिया ethics, integrity and aptitude. Integrity. What is integrity? A complete, integrated, total personality. वो बनने के लिए इन सब चीजों की जरूरत है बेटे. ऐसे ही पॉलिटी में सब कुछ जानो, ज्योग्राफी में सब कुछ जानो, छोड़ो कुछ भी मत. So that any question which is moderate to easy from any section, you can crack it. Difficult question तो ना तुम्हारे बस का है ना मेरे बस का है. Moderate to average, we'll crack all of them. How? Because we are smart about our preparation. That's how you do it, man. All right? चलो आगे देखते हैं. So as I was telling you, these are few wars that we will be discussing. We will of course be taking जैसे Operation Blue Star, right? How was Operation Blue Star? I'm just thinking aloud and giving you the list of topics that you must know. Bhopal gas tragedy, right? We will be talking about each of these. I also intend to, once we have discussed important events, I also intend to give you a brief one-pager on important persons or personalities, right? This is where these will be the personalities which have played a very important role post our independence. Right, post our independence. So we'll discuss a lot many here. One example which I intend to discuss here in this list is Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Right, questions around him have started becoming relevant. So we should now start. Another is of course Jayaprakash Narayan. I would try and ensure that you get knowledge about them as well here. Right. This is in a snapshot what I intend to do when it comes to your modern history. According to my experience and calculations, it should take this entire coverage of modern history, just the modern history. Forget about the art and culture and the world history part, right? Forget about that. Just the modern history which we have discussed here. This should take somewhere around 45 to 50 hours. Right? This is I would suggest. But you should be mentally ready for 40 hours. तक भी जा सकता है. 40 hours तक भी जा सकता है. Let's try and see. Let's try and see. Right? I'll not be in any hurry. Neither should you be. I have this habit of taking slightly long pauses. I think I apologize for it in advance. I'll try and cut it down. But yeah, I tend to do that. I tend to think a lot and then speak. Class mein. second, please. What I was checking is the 2019 prelims paper is done, right, and over. I was looking at the paper. There were around 15 odd questions from history as such, right? There were around 15 odd questions. 15 के आसपास direct questions थे. But again, if you follow my philosophy, where each of this information matters, and if you look at the number of references were around 30 references to history, and this much information too was around 30, right? 15 में से करीब 7 questions जो थे वो modern history के थे, right? There were 7 questions which were modern history, and they asked you questions, pretty interesting ones. I would advise you to go and have a look at the paper, right? I'm sure some of you might have done it already. Others as well, I would advise you to go and have a look, right? मेरे पास वो सारे question एक जगह नहीं हैं अभी. I have not been able to compile them yet at one place. Otherwise, I would have loved to discuss them. But definitely in the next class, the first thing that we'll do is we'll look at those questions, right? I would expect some of you to, in fact, all of you to go and look at them on your own self as well. We'll discuss them in class as well, right? I think I'm pretty much done. एक सेकंड सुनिए जरा, पॉज करिए. हो सकता है? नहीं हो सकता, तो लाइव चल रहा है, राइट? अच्छा, okay, anyway, so as I was telling you guys, I think this will be it in that case. यहाँ पे खत्म कर सकते हैं क्या? हाँ? Okay, so guys, this is intended to be purely an introductory class, right? I've been advised not to begin with the course as such. So if you guys have any question, please feel free to let me know here. I would love to take them if you have any questions. Otherwise, I would prefer to wrap it up. Because I'm done with giving you the snapshot. This is how the classes are going to progress, right? So the next time, I think my class begins from 22nd. So when we meet on 22nd, we'll start off our discussion with the Carnatic Wars and all these, European colonial powers who came to India. कुछ मैं मिस तो नहीं कर रहा? सुनो, let's just talk about a couple of important things here. In terms of books or the sources, right? As I told you, NCRTs are probably the only thing which you require. They are the only thing which you require, right? The 3 names that anybody swears on or takes their oath on when it comes to history is R.S. Sharma for ancient history, right? R.S. Sharma is the same guy who wrote the NCRT, right? Then you have Satish Chandra for medieval history, again the same guy who wrote NCRT, and Bipin Chandra for modern history. Bipin Chandra is one hell of a book. You can read it. It's like a story. It will not give you a lot of factual information. For that, I am here. Don't worry. Google is there, man. Chill. What you need to be understanding is to put that information in context. This is where Bipin Chandra will help you. So please, one good book that you can definitely spend some money on. You can also download the free PDF. No problem. I'm sorry, probably I shouldn't have said it. Anyway, yeah, buy it. Okay, so do not promote piracy. Do not promote piracy. Yeah, I do not. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, and for world history, these are the three books जो मैंने आपको बताया. And for the world history, you have another writer who has written the NCRT for world history. This is Arjun Dev. Again, a very good book, right? These 4 books are the only ammunition that you need in case you're looking for, right? My classes will suffice. Right? इतना जानना है हमें, इतना जान लो, बहुत अच्छा खासा जान जाओगे. Right? I would really admire if you can, ask me absolutely any question whenever you feel like, right? Whenever you feel like you have any kind of questions, you can ask me directly, or in the classroom you can stop. We can discuss the questions first. I don't mind. Once we are in touch, once we share our email IDs and phone numbers, we will also be discussing about writing techniques, right? We would also be taking up questions and writing answers, because I'm sure you would agree, right? कि बेटे उसके बिना काम नहीं चलने वाला है. Unless you are able to write in a well-reasoned manner, you will not be able to crack the mains examination, no matter how good you know your concepts and stuff, right? Writing is something which is also, I am going to personally क्या कहते हैं उसे, stress a lot upon in these classes. I would ask you to write and show me your answers. I would ask you to show them in a regular manner. Something of that has to be arranged, and you have to start writing, right? Even if it begins from writing small diary entries, I don't mind. Okay, so yeah, somebody from Muhammad from Jamshedpur is okay. So the books which I mentioned, I'll repeat the names. Should I write them down? मैं लिख देता हूँ एक बार. Remember, these are the names, these are the books which were written by people who wrote the NCRT. So the stuff is same. For ancient, it is R.S. Sharma. For medieval, it is Satish Chandra. For modern, it is Bipin Chandra. And for world history, Arjun Dev. I would also, like to take this opportunity, because there are some of us who are meeting for the very first time, and now there's going to be around a week gap before we meet next, isn't it? करीब हफ्ते 10 दिन का gap है आपके पास. Please use this time to look at the map. Can you please do that? India का map एक बार physical और political अच्छे से देख के study कर लो please. Physical as well as political. When I say study कर लो, I know I'm being very vague, but I'm being vague with a purpose. right? I want you to look at everything, starting from your own hometown and the river closest to it, to Brahmaputra and Ganga. I want, use your mind, जो तुम्हें important लग रहा है. Look at the important mountain ranges, names which you can recall. Try and locate them and find them out. Use your own knowledge to do it. Right? Knowledge lies within, not outside. Knowledge lies within, not outside. You have to reflect inside. तो प्लीज एक बार जो मैप उठा लो, just put physical map. Start with the physical map or a political map, whatever. Look at your hometown, उसके आसपास का रीजन देखो, अपने स्टेट में देखो कौन कौन सी major rivers, and look at the major rivers in your state, right? Find out the major mountain ranges in India. Look at them. Find out. This is very important. And again, I see 2 to 3 references in every paper every year of port cities. किस नदी के पास कौन सा शहर है? You getting my point here? किस नदी के पास कौन सा शहर है? Don't you think this is something which we can actually study and know? बहुत आसान है, बहुत आसान है. देखो, जैसे as I was telling you, if this is that fictional map that we were drawing, right? नर्मदा के स्टार्टिंग पे भरूच है, ताप्ती के माउथ पे सूरत है. You can actually try and know this much of information. So what I'm trying to tell you is, please use this time period and study maps. Okay? There are a lot of other good websites as well, right? There are a lot of other good websites as well. I'm sure you guys know this, right? You can just go and Google and get all the relevant fact and information. My role will be here, will be just one. I'm not here claiming that, भाई मुझको इसके बारे में सब कुछ आता है ऐसा. I'm not that stupid. I'm not that stupid. Nobody can do that, right? I'm here only trying to tell you one thing. It is doable. We can do it in a slightly phased out and well structured manner. It is possible to understand this entire chaos in a well structured manner. दिमाग को खाली रख के बहुत ज़्यादा आलतू फालतू की चीज़ों में मत लगाओ. Try and stay sharp when you are listening to my voice. Please try and stay sharp. Right? Yeah, I think you do not need to actually read these books as, again, leisure reading. वैसे पढ़िए आराम से एकदम इत्मीनान से relax होकर के and write them. I mean, start writing your own thoughts. Start writing your own thoughts. I think this is all that I have to say for the time being, right? So I'll see you guys on in my next class. Have fun, keep studying, and bye. Take care.